My name is Henrik Widén, and I am currently working as the CEO of the industrial think tank called Sustainability Circle. And Sustainability Circle is a network of companies that together has decided that we need to do more in order to support sustainable development. So our members, as most other companies, see sustainable development as a key goal for the time being. But there are many forces pressuring our businesses. And in order to cope, to simplify, we say that a company can do two things. It can redesign its offer, respond in a different way with new offers, customer needs and services, and it can improve its manufacturing and maintenance footprint to do more in a better way with what it already has. And that is our key area of interest in Sustainability Circle. So all our events, all our meetings, workshops, webinars is about to support a vision of zero breakdowns. And typically, as today, we will talk about sustainable development on kind of a strategic but yet practical way. We think that in order to achieve this, you need to have a good maintenance foundation. And then to close the gap, you need to invest in smart maintenance technology and smart maintenance management, which maybe today we would describe as the digitalization of manufacturing, and the change process is connected to that digitalization. So today we're going to have a workshop. The ones of you that are more used to be with us will recognize that it's more interaction than it is usually maybe. We will have three parts. First, we will listen to presentations from Melanie and Ebru from Chalmers, from Carolina from also Chalmers, but another part, and from Adriana from Autoliv and Lena from Volvo. Lena is here, but she will be in picture later. They have been already working in this project Frid that Melanie will introduce, and they will all share their experiences so far. Then we will have a breakout discussion. We will divide you into rooms, and I will explain the practicalities as we come to that point. And at the very end, we will also have a common discussion, some feedback from the breakout rooms, and also if there are any other questions. So once again, please use the chat. There will be, if there are some few questions after each presentation, we might take them, but mostly we will collect the questions to the discussion at the end. And then by experience, I know that the best is to actually write your question when it pops up, so to make sure that it is not forgotten. I think I have said everything that I should say in the introduction. So I would like then to introduce to you now Melanie and Ebru, and they will introduce themselves maybe also a little bit. I will go dark, but as I said, you can reach me in the chat. So, very welcome, Melanie. We don't hear you actually now, so something happened with the I can see that the microphone is unmuted, but
is it back?
Yes, now it's back.
Okay, I just switched off and on the audio, basically.
Yeah, that's why we need so many engineers, because technology is not always working as expected. So.
But thank you, Henrik, for the introduction. And cross fingers, technology agrees with us today, and we won't have too many technical issues, or none at all, hopefully. So yes, my name is Melanie Despeisse. I am Associate Professor at Chalmers University of Technology. And today I'm here with Ebru, who's going to introduce herself in a second. And we're going to tell you about the press study for this project called Frid for Factory Resource and Energy Efficiency through Digitalization. It's quite a long title. Ebru, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Henrik, for a very nice introduction. I am Ebru Becker and working as a researcher, Chalmers, same division with Melanie, production systems, and in another sister research group. It's called Production Service and Maintenance System, and I'm mainly working on the predictive maintenance and based on some machine learning AI techniques as a core part of smart maintenance concept. Right?
Yeah, so lots of expertise that we have in-house and many of our colleagues as well. All of us focus on production systems and how we can use technologies to help improve manufacturing performance. And I will talk a little bit about how we define performance later on in this presentation. So a little bit more about the project, because today we have this workshop actually as part of this FREED project. So as I mentioned, FREED stands for Factory Resource and Energy Efficiency through Digitalization, because the purpose of this project is to develop a practical toolkit to help us understand how we can use digitalization as an enabler for environmental sustainability. And we very much focus on what can be done at the factory level, so really in manufacturing operations. And I really like to use pictures. You will see a bit in my slides. And I like to see digitalization as a tool, really, in order to achieve sustainability. And right now we hear a lot about climate impact and other big environmental issues, global issues that we need to address. And I really think that digitalization should help us move in that direction. And if we are not able to use technology to help us tackle those issues, I think we're just going to get a job that becomes harder and harder. So we are really trying to figure out how we can align digitalization and sustainable principles together. So that's what the project tries to do. Now, in terms of the shift that we are trying to do, I know this slide is very busy, but please stay with me. I will take you through each of those steps, starting on the left side. So talking about the different approaches for green manufacturing. And what we see sometimes when a company starts to look at environmental sustainability is that they may have a slightly disconnected approach at first, where they may have some sustainability goals. So for example, talking about energy efficiency or climate impact or waste management. So there may be some quite high-level strategic goals. But when we look at how operations, manufacturing operations are being managed, it's quite disconnected. So we're still very much focused on quality, safety, productivity, delivery time. So what I would call like traditional measures of performance. This is what I wanted to mention. When we talk about production performance in this project, we try to expand a little bit the definition to also include environmental performance. Now, before we talk about environmental performance, what we see that we also start to understand what is environmental impact. And that's the quantified, so the second block that you see here, where we start to quantify the environmental impact of manufacturing operations through various KPIs or environmental indicators. And this will help us make the connection between the strategic goals. So for example, if we want to achieve climate neutrality, we need to be able to measure the climate impact of the operations. So CO2 emissions or greenhouse gases, depending on what operations you have. So really making this connection. Then the next step with the integrated model that we have there, we start looking at how those indicators can be used as more operational indicators. So things that can make a sense on the shop floor. So it is both about making the performance more visible, so environmental performance more visible, but also figuring out how we can use that as a driver for doing some improvements. So when you have a team meeting, if you have a Scrum meeting every morning, then you can review the indicators, review the performance, and think about what needs to be done in order to ensure you are on a continuous improvement track. And finally, foundational is what we try to do actually for the FREED project is try to understand what are the sustainability principles that can be used for driving operations management, driving optimization, driving improvements, so that environmental sustainability is not something that we use only as a lagging indicator or just something that we report or something just for passive monitoring, but more using actively as part of a process analysis and process optimization. And finally, at the bottom of the screen, you can see here with this gradient where we have at first, most of the environmental activities and sustainability initiatives tend to be very human-driven, which I believe will always remain human-driven because sustainability, I think, is very much about caring for the planet, caring for people. And I don't think we can ever have data or machines or technology do that for us. So it's always going to be human-driven. But increasingly, we can see that we have great availability in terms of data and information, and also analytical power in our data management systems to make sense of the data and use that to have more data supported or data informed or fact-based decision-making processes. So that's what we try to do in this project, trying to understand how we can use digitalization to increase the amount of data that can be used for driving environmental improvement, specifically in manufacturing. So if you have any questions, as Henrik mentioned before, please put them in the chat. I'm very happy to address them when we have the time. But yes, so this is the foundations for what shift we want to see happen. And very briefly, I'll try to keep it short. Again, I know it's a busy slide, but we've done a state-of-the-art review to try to understand how manufacturing companies can increase their environmental performance. And based on the challenges we have identified, and there were 8 really big sets of challenges, we have identified that we can use digitalization to systematically support the transformation towards environmental sustainability and overcome those challenges. So the first proposition we made is that digitalization should systematically help us be more resource efficient and reduce environmental impact. That's the first thing. If the technology takes us in the other direction, we have to revise something. Something is going wrong. So systematically, we need to be more efficient when we use the technology. The second thing is digitalization should help us proactively integrate sustainability as a driver of performance. As I mentioned before, now we can have the information, so we should be much more proactive rather than reactive for environmental issues. The third proposition is that we need to identify trade-offs between different dimensions of sustainability. So typically it's going to be a trade-off between economic and environmental sustainability, but we need to at least make them visible so we know maybe sometimes it's a slightly higher cost, but it's a very big environmental gain, for example. Then the fourth proposition is about adopting a life cycle perspective, because now we know that the systems are very connected. We have global operations. We need to consider the supply chain, maybe even the customer or waste management. So increasing the scope of what can be measured when we measure performance. So that's the fourth proposition, adopting a wider perspective so we can see if there are any rebound effects. Local improvement may result in worsening impact elsewhere. We need to be aware of that. The fifth proposition is about how digitalization can help us do sustainability assessment in a very rigorous manner. Because as I mentioned before, sustainability tends to be very human-driven. And what we've seen is for environmental issues, it tends to be very emotional, very intuitive decisions being made. But we need to be able to measure whether our decisions are leading to environmental improvements. So that's the fifth proposition. We need to have fact-based, data-informed decisions. Yes, we still need to care, but having intuitive decisions don't always result in the right shift from an environmental perspective. Then for the sixth proposition, we are talking about how we can use hybrid methods, so maybe more complex analytical methods for optimization and multi-criteria decision analysis. And we believe that digitalization, big data analytics are wonderful tools that can help us handle this complexity. The proposition number 7 is about the integration of sustainability with established management systems. And the reason why we have this proposition here is because we've seen that when environmental initiatives are done separately from what is considered as the core business, it's more as an add-on or what I would call like an afterthought. And we have only a limited space for making improvements, if any improvement at all. Whereas if we can integrate them in how we do operations management, we have a much higher chance of having environmental improvements actually happening. So as much as possible, we want to integrate those environmental indicators in established systems rather than having a separate platform. Otherwise, it feels like it's additional work as well. So really a seamless integration. And finally, the 8th proposition is about things that we actually haven't seen all that much. And I believe that these are kind of the next wave. So right now we talk a lot about climate impact, but I think the next wave are going to be about circular economy and servitization. So what is the impact of circular economy and servitization trends in manufacturing companies? How is that going to reshape a little bit the operations? And again, we've seen that digitalization has also a big impact or potential impact in helping manufacturing companies to fit in a servitized circular society. So yes, that's a long story short. We have a very big paper we submitted to a journal about this. And if you're interested, please get in touch with us. We're very keen to share our findings and increase engagement of manufacturing companies with this. So yeah, digitalization, we believe, is a key enabler for environmental sustainability. So now we can dive deep into the data, Ibru?
I hope. Okay, let's move. Thank you, Melanie. I would like to just introduce a process for data life cycle from data to insight to decision process, which we call it is a whole data life cycle. I would like to introduce you actually a very practical and well-applied methodology, a project methodology actually, that we use generally in data mining project, and which is called a cross-industry standard process for data mining, in short, CRISPR approach. It's a very, very useful approach to use. So why we also wanted to adopt this approach when we are identifying for data lifecycle process for environmental maturity assessment for each project as well. It's a kind of guiding process for us. If you look at that figure, as you see that this CRISPR approach is basically a structured and adapted approach for the methodological application of the steps systematically for big data mining of real world data sets. And when we start this process, basically the first step is business understanding. And it also includes some other steps, other phases, like data understanding, data preparation, modeling, evaluation, and deployment. But there is no any, let's say, rigid in terms of the sequences of these phases, of course. So we can moving back and forward between the phases is always required, because lessons learned during the phase, during the process, of course, it's very much helpful for understanding the requirements, availability, some other dimensions that would help us. And the main important point, of course, for this process is even if the data, this type of process always consider the data in the core. But in another point, I think Melanie already touched that, the human and domain expertise and knowledge always should be in the core as well, together with the data. It's not only with the data. I think that is a very important point. Human should be in the loop, every data mining project or every data science or AI machine learning project. So this is also the key message for us. And that interaction between the data and domain knowledge. And also important point here, because as I also told that lessons learned, even in the end of the deployment, this process is not actually ending just once the solution is implemented or deployed in the factory. But the lessons learned will help us, lessons learned along the way will help us to figure it out, the business objectives and more focused business objectives. So why it requires actually the continuous improvement as well. As you see on the screen, is outer cycle is a kind of starting with the data to decision, data to insight to decision, and also continuous improvement with the lessons learned. It should be maintained. And I think if I move the next slide, I would like to, of course, introduce the steps a little bit more in detail. What type of tasks that we consider and how that is related in our maturity assessment that we also identified some dimensions considering the data. And in the business understanding phase, mainly it covers some basic steps, but understanding is basically determining the business objective is, of course, a very important part of this process to be able to identify the purpose of your what you are looking for, and that is very important part. And also assessing the situation and determining the data management goals and strategy would help us along the way to be able to figure out this data management in data lifecycle process. And another task associated with this step is called producing project plan to be able to. So this is exactly the kind of project, and we need to have a kind of a preliminary project plan that guide us all the other steps as well. And in the next step, in data understanding, once we have some business objective based on our needs and requirements, the data, and we need to understand, okay, what type of data, initial data collection that we can do, and how we can describe this data and explore something on the data by using some statistical analysis or basic visualization and plots, just understanding what the data is. And also the important part, maybe the key part for when we are dealing with the data quality, I think that the verification of data quality and is a very important part to be able to continue the process as well. And after these two steps, I think we are almost getting an understanding, okay, how much data we have and with the purpose, what we would like to achieve as a decision support. And we can have that dimension also we wanted to cover for our maturity assessment is called data availability. And also the next step is like the data preparation. And in this step, we generally select the data based on the availability. It's important outcome from the other two steps. And also we need to do something more maybe on the data because it is still requires some maybe cleaning, maybe some other preparation to get the high quality or enough quality to be able to continue. And also we have some other data formatting and data construction type of things that we can do. And this is also very important for us to be able to identify potential improvements in performance monitoring, for example, and the type of potential improvements for process control, production planning, or some process design and so forth. That is also important to identify that. So why we use that performance monitoring as a kind of important keystone on this process. And also, if we move the modeling phase, of course, we need to understand what type of analysis we can do based on the data and characteristics that we have, and also the potential improvements regarding with the associated process. And after that, we need to generate some model. We need to select some model based on the analysis that we would like to do this type of analysis and what type of model that are available that we can use as well. And we need to also identify some validation and generating to some validation design, and we need to build our model, and of course to be able to understand and trust our model, that we need to show that how the model is actually performing. So it's called the assessing the model. And this is also too much related with this analysis and integration dimension of that process. And in the evaluation, of course, we need to understand the results, evaluating the results, and review the process, what the other things that we should improve, that we can improve, and if the model that we built really is fitting the purpose that we identify in the business understanding step, or should we do something, or we need to go to another steps and kind of moving back and forth between them. And finally, we have the deployment. And after the evaluate the results and review process, so we need to understand the planning of, we have a planning for deployment, monitoring and maintenance, and producing final report and review the project to be able to get more, lessons learned and how we can adapt this for the continuous improvement, what is called also the optimization and controls in our process. Yeah, this is basically, I try to briefly outline. So.
Yeah, thank you, Ebru. I think it's very rich. I know that we are a little bit over our presentation time. I know, Henrik, we're going to wrap up because I know what Carolina is going to say is going to be very interesting as well afterwards. So just to wrap up on this part, basically what Ebru has talked about, how we can go through this data lifecycle. During the press study that we've done for the FIT project, we developed this maturity model to assess how the company has developed their internal management processes, data management processes at different levels to address environmental sustainability. So the maturity model that we developed during the press study was really focused on how we can use data to manage environmental impact. So it's not just digitalization maturity or just environmental or sustainability maturity, but we're trying to assess the maturity of the data management systems to support environmental sustainability. So at the overlap, and we have assessed it at a process level, and partially at facility level. And we are still developing the maturity model at the moment to do the assessment at the company level as well. But just to give you an example of what the results could look like, basically the maturity is assessed, as Ebru mentioned, with the data availability, the performance monitoring, analysis and integration, and optimization and controls. And we added one layer about reporting and targets. And so basically, this is how we have scored the maturity of companies. How are they using the data to do all of those wonderful things with the data to provide information and knowledge for decision-making for environmental sustainability. And just to close up our presentation, we will go back to this topic when we have the discussions, the group discussions during the workshop a bit later. So when you will become active. And what we'll be focusing on is what are the key characteristics for a good data management system that will allow us to improve environmental sustainability or reduce the environmental impact of manufacturing. And that's what we call eco-efficiency. So I'm not going to explain to you those criteria because we'll spend some time discussing it during the workshop later. But just so that you know, that's what will be the topic for the survey later. Data management systems and how do we use them for environmental sustainability. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you very much. Now we should bring in Carolina as the presenter. So very welcome, Carolina. And I really liked what Melanie and Ebru said, that we need to make the sustainability goals and measurements as leading targets, not the lagging targets. I totally agree. And at least put them at the same level as other leading targets. So I will now bring forward your presentation, Carolina.
Thank you.
And, please go ahead.
All right. Can you hear me well? Just to check. Perfect.
Yes.
Hello, everybody. Just briefly about myself, I'm Karolina Kazmierczak, working at, yes, that's true, there's a word Chalmers, but we only evolved from Chalmers University. We are Chalmers Industry Technique. It's a R&D kind of little consulting institute. And I work as a project manager within a circular economy group. Our part, so we also took part, of course, in the study that Melanie and Ebru were presenting. Our part was looking really into more into the review of current good practices in industry. And I'll shift actually the slide. So the aim was really to look, to establish kind of what current state of art is in the industrial applications of digital technologies and big data for sustainability through a review of good practices. And we looked at both in kind of ongoing or completed projects, so really desktop research, but also initiatives to extract lessons learned for the fruit toolkit based even on our partners' good practices, the industrial ones. So based on, going through a lot of different literature and references, the final proposal for best practice typology. So the good, I call it sometimes best, sometimes good. Maybe we should stick with the good. Good practice typology aims to identify information needed to document and share supported environmental improvements with the purpose to disseminate and replicate success stories. So not only focusing on the pure kind of reporting, but really cascading it, all those success stories through the companies and not only reporting ones. The proposal is, so the typology is composed to 3 types of improvement and information related to means of improvement. So if we look at the types, I try to take the pointer. I hope this will work. So types of improvement in 3 areas. We define them as the process design area, production planning, and process controls. So different kind of scope, you can say. And looking at the means here of improvement, we split it into 3 groups of factors or categories. There's one group called operational factors, where data would be needed. Then there is the organizational factors and, other factors. So if we look at the operational ones, which data would be needed, there is different kind of categories, such as physical resources, so material, energy, water, chemicals, different inputs and also outputs. Manufacturing process, so here would be really the description of the process. Is it stamping, or is it dyeing process, or is it any kind of process, pretty much? Infrastructure would be kind of supporting systems, so everything from IT systems to infrastructure in terms of buildings, for example. Next category is performance indicators, so metrics and targets that are included here. And the last one is methods. And in methods, it's very broad. I mean, it can be any lean tools, standards, whichever kind of methods are used to establish this good practice. When it comes to organizational factors, so here it's pretty much all the softer factors, as we can say, who would be involved and what skills are required. So the first point is roles and responsibilities. Who has the access and ownership of data and information? Also authority in making decision. Is it operators? Is it team leaders? Is it engineers, design engineers, whoever? But also control in taking action. And next point is also skills and competencies. One thing is I have a role as an engineer, but maybe my skills are really focused on the specific process. And the last, this group of factors, other factors, is the frequency. So how often does this good practice require an action? Is it one-time thing? Probably not, because you have to reevaluate, is the process still going as we planned, kind of. So maybe it needs some continuous actions on it. So this was very theoretical, I know that, and now I'll just present you based on one of our partners, Autolives, and probably Adriana will share maybe more information here, but just to show you, and hopefully you can see, I don't know how I can enlarge the screen, but hopefully you can see the table. So here it's an example, is implementation of automatic washing system on dye lines. And based on the information that we have received from Autoliv, we try to use the proposal of our good practice typology. How can we use the data provided from the real life? So if we look, it fits in the category of process design, this specific good practice. We could extract information, the manufacturing process. Here we had a lot of equipment specifications, of course, provided. There was nothing probably provided on infrastructure, on performance indicators. We could see productivity, time, probably headcount as well. When it comes to methods, there's different sort of lean methods or tools, such as 5Y method. There is also a very strong Autoliv production system training that each person in the company pretty much has received. Now the category of organizational factors, so roles and responsibilities, we could see a lot of people involved, such a process engineer, R&D, process engineer, listed twice, maintenance engineer, and design. And then we could see, okay, from this good practice, we didn't extract the information here. But this is pretty much how we validated our thoughts. And I think I have one more example just to show, but that's also due to, or in the category of process design, where we could see similar, maybe more on performance indicators, such as productivity, headcount, accidents, also roles, responsibilities, and performance indicators, and methods, 5Y method. So this was just to validate our proposal. It's not super written in stone, but at least it's something that we, based on the literature and the real cases, could create in our pre-study. That was briefly from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carolina.
Thank you.
And you had an amazing TV lead, when you said that maybe Adriana is going to tell more, because now we're going to listen to
Perfect.
Adriana. So I will ask you, Adriana, to come online. Yes, thank you. And I have your updated presentation here. Yeah, so very welcome from a totally different part of Europe. So that's one of the good things with this digital tool. We can meet from wherever in the world. So please go ahead, Adriana.
Yeah. So hello everybody, nice to be part of this project. My name is Adriana Panainte. I am the plant manager of one of the Autoliv divisions. I am responsible of the webbing division in Romania. And into the next slides, I will try to give you some, let's say, flavor about what we are doing, since when we are here, and what is our contact into the FRED project. First of all, I want to tell you that in Autoliv Romania, in Romania, Autoliv is present since more than 24 years ago. First, we have started in 1997 as a joint venture between Autoliv and a local company in Romania. Later on, we have continued and we have expanded almost each year, year over year. I have marked, let me see if I can take the pointer. I have marked the years in which the plant that I am responsible had different extensions. So in 2005, the webbing division in Romania took birth, I could say. Then in 2015, we had a significant extension, and later on in 2017, we have built a second facility. In Romania, Autoliv is having roughly 10,000 employees, split it in 6 locations. We have in our portfolio almost a complete passive safety elements, starting from textiles. We are producing buckles, seat belts, steering wheels, and in Brasov we have the biggest campus where we have producing seat belts, inflator generators, steering wheels, and of course webbing that I am presenting you today. So this is a snapshot of the Brasov platform, the place in which I am physically now. As I mentioned, VOR, so the webbing division, is composed in 2 facilities. We have similar production, and we are surrounded into the campus by the other divisions that are producing seat belts, springs, steering wheels, inflators, and we have a very big technical center also in Brasov. Those are some pictures with our, let's say, the division, and I will shortly explain you the webbing process. So the webbing is the textile part of the seat belt that is produced on the weaving machines that we are using. So first of all, we are transforming the yarn into a semi-finished product webbing. Then there is a process of dyeing the webbing, or coloring, as you wanted to say. As you can see in the picture, the technology, especially for the dyeing, it's in a huge percentage automated. We are using operators only for some setups and monitoring of the equipment. And also, as you can see from the picture, is very well understood that our division is a very big consumers of utility resources. And the main focus that we step into this project was to optimize and to have efficiency utilization of the resources that we need. We are not the only one into Autoliv world. So Autoliv is having webbing divisions all over the globe. So our success will be for sure deployed in all our plants. Let's say we were chosen to be part of this project because we are the only one located in Europe. And in respect of the volumes, I could say we are the biggest plant into the autoliv. But important to know is that we have also facilities in Canada, in India, and China that will benefit from our learning into this project. Our contribution, so what we are bringing to autoliv through our work is we build a winning team in Romania with a lot of expertise and knowledge in all areas, I would say. We are very much focusing on functional excellence. Part of the implementation of the footprint project. We also have a lot of initiatives in respect of factory of the future, end-to-end production, digitalization, manufacturing excellence, and automation. It's, let's say, our main focuses in autoliv. And here are some examples that are connected with what I just mentioned before. So here I have on the screen a project that was initiated in our, let's say, initiative called Internet of Things concept, where we work for the production planning. We have built, let's say, an infrastructure where everything it is made automatically, and it is displayed in real time, and we can have transparency and good background for our analysis sessions. Also, we have data collection. So these are the production lines that we have, both in all areas. We are collecting the data automatically, either from PLCs or from other sensors. So this is a project in work. Data is stored and analyzed with different digital tools, and then automatic notifications if process anomalies occur are sent to our system, depending on the escalation model that we have set up in different stages. Those are more informations in regards of data collect, so how we are collecting, shared, and also we are able to collect data, or we are planning to collect data in regards of some key parameters like speed of the machines, utilities consumptions, noise generated, and all the data are analyzed and monitored. We also have good step in respect of digitalization of all if something is called not okay. Auto SPC, it's on the same trend. It's that we are planning. We put sensor on the production lines that measure key parameters: speed, heat, pressure, distance, or whatever. And also for this auto SPC, we can have a digital report with an automatic alarm if something is outside of the parameters. Also, due to the last year situation with, let's say, the travel restrictions, and so on, we start to have a virtual tour planned tour with easy to visit access, and we are working also on this aspect. We also investigate the possibility to add production data into this program. And here are some examples that also Carolina says before is we tried, as I explained, we have a pretty automatic process in the webbing division. There are several steps we have analyzed through different lean tools like VSM, VSD, and cleaning or changeover of in our process was one of the operations that we consider that it's let's say muda, and it's not in line with our vision, because it was consuming a lot of resources besides the human one, also utilities. Not a very ergonomic process to be made. So right now everything is done by pushing a button. Our equipment are installed special pipes with nozzles, and this cleaning is made automatically on all our equipment. And another process that was manually non-ergonomic and very time-consuming was also replaced by a robot that is doing the job by himself, and this is bringing us a lot of benefits. I see on the chat that I am not visible, or you don't hear me. Is everything okay?
Everything is okay, Adriana. It comes and goes a little bit, but I think it will still be okay on the recording. So if someone missed something, they can catch up on the recording.
Great. And other project that we have in place is we focus very much on our utilities consumption, as I mentioned, and into the dyeing process we are using a lot of water into the washing process. Based on the test that we have performed, we have realized that we can use recycled water into our process. Not in totality. This is why you see that only 80% is reused, because there are steps in the project where we need fresh and treated water. But where we were able to implement this recycle and refilter and reintroducing into the system, we did it, and that was a real good, let's say, project for us. We have performed this recycle water in 2 of our areas where we had this process applicable. Sustainability focus together with FREED project. It's, as I mentioned, efficient manufacturing process that use resources efficiently with minimal impact on the environment. We want to reconcile sustainability with ongoing digitalization activities that we have in our lives. So we have Chalmers University as our consultant with knowledge, with expertise, and together with their ideas and documentation and the digitalization process that take place in Autoliv, we will our plan is to reduce 25% our utilities consumption into the next years, and to further work into different kind of recycle purposes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adriana. Very impressive to see. And it's going to be really interesting to follow good, ambitious targets to reduce with 25%. So now we will quickly move on to another Gothenburg-originated business.
Yes.
Volvo. I will bring forward your presentation. There it is. Very welcome, Lena. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. So my name is Lena Moestam and I work at Volvo Group Trucks Operations. The plan was that I would do this presentation together with Cecilia Almroth from the Umeå plant, but she's unfortunately sick today. So I will do that. So Volvo Group then, we produce heavy vehicles and I'm sure you recognize those, the construction equipment and trucks, buses, and also we make marine engines and propulsions. And we also produce a lot of services together with these then. Volvo Group Trucks Operations is the part of Volvo Group that produces the trucks. And we have around 30,000 employees all over the world. And the major part of it is blue-collar workers. And Volvo Group in total is around 100,000 employees. So you see it's a really big share of Volvo. A few years ago, we committed to the science-based targets. And this means a lot regarding the ambitions for our products. But it has also sharpened the targets and ambitions for the plants, which you can see also in this slide. So really tough challenges going ahead towards 2025. And let's move to the Umeå plant then. In Umeå, that is our cab plant, where steel coils are transferred to complete cabs. And the manufacturing processes there are pressing and stamping, body in white, which is welding operations, and painting the cabs. And in the Freed project, we've been part of this maturity assessment that Melanie and Ibro was talking about. And these were some of the results at Volvo from the maturity assessment. And well, we were a bit disappointed at these results because we thought that we were better than this in our environmental performance. But this is not actually the environmental performance. This is an assessment of how mature we are in using data to work on our environmental performance. And what can be said here is that we saw really big improvement opportunities to work on when it comes to utilizing data in a better way to improve the environmental performance of our operations. So we thought that that was really good. You could see that we are a bit better in energy, for instance, but there is big potential for improvement. And also, we should take this picture with a pinch of salt since we haven't looked super detailed into all areas, but I think it gives us something to work on, really. Okay, so that was my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lena. I mean, I think it's great that there are still opportunities for improvements, of course. So
Yeah.
and it looks really ambitious, very interesting. Now we're going to move over to the more interactive phase. Melanie is going to introduce the workshop part. I have brought forward your presentation here, Melanie. So please go ahead. I will post some information in the chat as well.
Thank you, Henrik. Yes, absolutely. So now is the moment where you will activate. So we're going to ask you a few questions. We will have a survey for you. So the process is going to be actually quite simple. I will post a link in the chat. And yes, Henrik, thank you very much for a survey. So you can tell us a little bit about how you see what is, in your opinion, a good data management system. So what are the key features or the key characteristics that you think we should really prioritize so that the data management system can support environmental sustainability. So just keep that in mind. We are really focusing on driving environmental improvements. So that's the context for the questions we have in the survey. It should take about 1-2 minutes to fill in. And then you will discuss in breakout rooms. So you will all be able to voice your opinion and your experience. So as much as possible, share what has worked or didn't work in your own company, or what is difficult, especially. I know it sounds a bit negative, but we're really interested in knowing what is difficult so we can really push and develop a toolkit that can help you in those sticky bits. And then we will have a plenary discussion. So we will ask you to bring with you some feedback, some ideas, some suggestions on how we can move forward on this topic. And to give you food for thoughts for these discussions, I'd like to share with you a quote. And I know it's not animated, so you can already see my question, but you probably heard this from Peter Drucker before. You can't improve what you can't measure. And there's another version of this quotation that is, what gets measured gets managed. And you can see that for both of them, it's basically saying we need to collect data, we need to have the measure, the metrics, the indicators in order to improve. And I wanted to ask, do you agree with those quotations? And my little addition with the continuously word has been already added. But these are the kind of thing that I would like you to think about, thinking about your operations in your company, how you measure performance, how you improve performance, and think about how would you change those quotations to really reflect how you approach environmental performance. So these are the food for thoughts for the workshop. As I mentioned, the survey will cover a number of characteristics or key features for data management systems. I know that it's quite a lot, so I will let you read this in your own time. It's in the survey. There's a short definition for each one of them at the top. So you know what we are asking, and then you can go back to it anytime you need to really think about, okay, what do we mean by understandability? What does that mean? So you can read the definition. Yeah. So I don't know, Henry, but yes, I wanted to talk a little bit about the next steps for the project. Can you move on, maybe, Henrik, to the last slide? Maybe we can jump directly there. Yeah. So for the next step, we are going to have a proposal, of course, to continue with the work we've done in the press study with a full-scale project. So we plan to have the project for about 3 years in response to the FFI call for hållbar produktion in December. And maybe the next slide, I think, contains the structure for the project. Yes. So just to show you a little bit the idea of how we're going to structure the work for the project and how you can engage, so continue with this kind of workshops maybe. So basically what we want to do with the companies that are involved, so we have, of course, Volvo Trucks and Autoliv, who you've heard from today. We're also in discussion with SKF to enlarge a little bit our consortium. And we will continue to explore what are the different ways we can use data to help manage environmental performance. And we will do a lot of the work in what we call the develop and learn. So that's the work package 2 here, with small scale pilots at the different manufacturing sites. And you can also see that there's a little bit of an extension on the right-hand side with the red square with external partners, and you will be able to engage with us through workshops and seminars that we plan to organize through Sustainability Circle, maybe through Chalmers as well. We have the area of advanced production seminar series. And we also have the R&D manufacturing R&D clusters. Some of you may be connected to this. So I think the full name is Swedish Manufacturing R&D clusters. And we will probably also have a number of events connected to this. So this this is where we will test bits and pieces around the toolkit and see what works, what doesn't. And then when we have a success story, we will try to figure out how we can scale it up. And that's the last work package in the on the screen that you could see earlier. So yes, if you want to get in touch, you can contact me, you can contact Henrik, and we'll make sure that you'll be included for the next seminars and workshop when we test bits and pieces of the toolkit. Yeah.
Thank you very, very much. And I have 2 watches. One is actually past 2:30. One is still with some few seconds left. So my apologies for that, depending on what your watch is showing. And my apologies also for maybe running out of time. But don't worry, you will get an email with the information. You will get the result of the survey and information on how to get in touch and stay connected.